All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Entrepreneur Coffee Break on September 10th, 2024. We're back. It's been a little while. I think the last one we had was probably back in April, just before our younger daughter got married, and then things went a little crazy for me for a couple months, and then summer. So we've decided to come back. I did put out a survey, and 98% of people asked me to bring the break back. So I'm very happy to welcome you back to our session. I do want to take a moment to acknowledge that I'm joining you from the unceded territory of the Beothuk, and I ask that you join me in reflecting on the lands that you're joining us from. We do have 5 Indigenous populations in our province. We have the Mi'kmaq, the Beothuk, the Innu, the Inuit, and the Southern Labrador Inuit. And I know for myself, having worked with NLADA, which is the Newfoundland and Labrador Indigenous Tourism Association, it's really heartwarming to see the varied Indigenous populations come together and try to help educate those of us that are unaware. Certainly, we have Truth and Reconciliation Day coming up at the end of this month, and so it's always a good time for us to learn a bit more about those that came before us. Today, it's known as Pasadena, so on the West Coast. I do believe everyone on the call knows me here today, but I'm not sure if everyone knows each other. I'm very pleased to welcome Morgan Payne from MP Business Solutions. I'm calling it what your accountant really needs to know from you. So her and I were joking. I said, that shoebox of receipts that you shove under the bed and then you bring it to the accountant and they go, ah. So anyway, she's gonna help demystify some of the things for us. We're gonna keep it nice and relaxed and just have a little chat. But for Morgan's benefit, I'll run through and ask each of you to introduce yourselves so that she's got a sense of who you are, and then can tailor our conversation and let it go from there. So I'm going to go the Brady Bunch screen order that you are in my screen. So it's Carmelita, you're up first, and then Allison. So perhaps let her know who you are and where you're located.
Hi, everyone. I think I pretty well know everyone here. I'm Carmelita Morgan from Karma Yoga, and I've been operating my yoga business for 14, going on 15 years now. And I'm just getting back in the swing of things for fall, and everything is quite busy, and I'm really happy with how everything is going.
Excellent.
Excited to start my classes.
Yes, kind of that sense of renewal this time of year. It's kind of that second New Year's Eve or something, kind of get all refreshed again.
Yeah.
Allison and then Kelly.
Hi, I'm Allison Rowe. I'm with College of the North Atlantic with the Office of Applied Research and Innovation, and specifically the Reality Capture and Digitization Technology Access Center. What we do at the Office of Applied Research and Innovation is basically we're the industry-facing branch of the college, and we support businesses, industry, and startups with their R&D needs. I'm looking at Terry Lynn, for example, the Reality Capture and Digitization Tech Access Center would be able to help with things like surveying and environmental monitoring and whatnot with our drones, for example. And we have a number of different programs and supports in place to help you do that. So if anyone has R&D needs, let me know. We can also link into any of our programs, our faculty and our students. So it might be something related to setting up an app, or it could be something related to farming or really tourism, anything, any area of expertise that you might need. And we're also part of Tech Access Canada, which has 67 technology access centers across the country in a variety of specializations, and we can help essentially any business with their R&D needs through the TAC as well.
That sounds so cool. Can I come up with a project just so I can play with a drone? That sounds cool. Kelly and then Terry Lynn.
Hi, I'm Kelly Lannon. I'm with Bees Knees Event Planning and Marketing. New to the business officially as of July 22nd. So we're just on the starting out phase, but it's going very, very well. And I'm here in beautiful Pasadena that just turned really gray and cloudy.
I know. So we'll get Morgan to give you some tips, Kelly, on how to do stuff right from the beginning, not like the mistakes that we've all the bad habits we've all picked up.
One of my tips actually says from the beginning.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Terry Lynn and then Samantha.
Thank you. So I'm Terry Lynn Robbins from Robbins Family Farm. My husband and I are co-owners here, and we're in Deer Lake. And we are a multi-commodity farm, small farm, and we have a strong focus on agritourism. We have a petting farm, and we also do all sorts of children's programs throughout the summer and at different points throughout the year. And we also have food programs. So in the summertime, we have a 12-week, we have a 12-week Farm Fresh food box subscription program. And in the winter, we do a protein program, a meat and eggs program, which is monthly delivery. And we also, coming now up, we have, we do all of the balsam fir products. So we do balsam fir wreaths and outdoor planters, evergreen gnomes, and anything you can make with balsam fir or any type of evergreen, we do that. And we primarily actually do them through workshops. So we take our show on the road, we offer them here at our farm, but we also take our show on the road and we travel all over Western Newfoundland and up the Northern Peninsula with our workshops. So it's a busy life.
Awesome.
And that's us in a nutshell.
Thank you. Samantha and then Brennan.
I'm Samantha O'Brien. I'm with Atlantic Edge Credit Union. I'm one of our commercial lenders. I'm based out of our Deer Lake branch, but we have 16 branches now. I can't keep track of the branches. Right from Port aux Basques right on up into the coastal Labrador, and now in St. John's as well. So we,
And Fogo, you did a road trip to Fogo to open Fogo.
I did. Oh, it was so good. My grandmother was originally from the island, so it was like a little nostalgic for me. But it's that branch is going to open, fingers crossed, to be during ICU week, Small Business Week, so in
Excellent.
October. So it's
Excellent.
very exciting times.
Good stuff. Brennan and then Sharon.
Hi, folks. I'm Brennan. I'm with Navigate. I think I know most of you. Work with a fair number of folks. We had the pleasure of hosting Morgan in a presentation back in the summer. So it's great to see Morgan sharing her expertise again, and nice to see all of you this morning. I'm in Corner Brook, by the way.
Excellent. Thank you, Brennan. And Sharon. Nope, we lost your sound.
Hear me?
Yep, there you go.
Yep.
Hear me? Good morning. Kelly, you're on one end of Pasadena, I'm on the other. It's sunny on this end. Gotta move
Okay.
over, man.
We're all moving.
Not over to the sunny side of the street. But it's coming
Yeah,
your
can we
way.
come to your house?
Yes, come on. So I own and operate Siva Meditation. I teach meditation. So I've been in this business going on 10 years. 2025, which is next year, if I'm not mistaken, will be 10 years. So I
Excellent.
enjoy what I call my work, but it's actually so much fun. And yeah, so that's it in a nutshell. Can't wait to learn some things this morning now from you. Thanks, Carol.
Excellent. Thank you. Excellent. All right, Morgan, if you want to take it away, tell us a little bit about you and jump right into our conversation, that'd be awesome.
Yep, sounds good. So I'm Morgan Payne. I own a accounting training company. We also offer bookkeeping services. And I'd like to say that we're not just a accounting firm or financial management firm. We help with a lot of the things that come with entrepreneurship. So not intentionally, it kind of happens as I meet with new clients and I see what they're struggling with, and I'm an entrepreneur myself. I went through all the steps of becoming a business owner. So I realized the things that you're not told in the beginning that cause you trouble down the road. So if I see them in a client that I'm currently working with, I always like to, I guess, make them aware of problems that they can fix before they are created. So we do a little bit of everything over this way. I have two girls that work with me. One is a bookkeeper. She actually has a list of her own clients now, which she's moving on up, which is awesome. It's Megan Welsh. I'm not sure if any of you know her. And the other girl is Madeline Roberts from Pasadena. She helps us with our marketing and does some admin things. So that's me and my team. And I guess I'll jump right into the tips that I have for you guys today. So the first one that I want to chat about, it's probably not fun for anyone, but super important, is like CRA compliance. So stop me if you guys have any specific questions about what I chat about, and I will answer them. But mainly what I want to chat about is like your deadlines that are specific to your business. If you're not aware of them and you're not meeting them, it really costs you a lot of money down the road. So for example, if your HST is due annually and you don't pay it by the deadline, like for example, if your year end is December 31st and your HST is likely due the end of January, you have 30 days after to pay it. After that, if it's not filed and paid, they're going to start charging arrears based on the day. So even if you haven't filed anything and you log into your account and you're like, oh no, I'm at $0, I don't owe anything. It's likely after you file that they will tack on those arrears. And a lot of people don't know that. Same thing with payroll taxes, like they're due monthly by the 15th. And if CRA doesn't receive it before the 15th, they also will charge arrears. So I'm not sure how many of you know this, or but yeah, that's a huge thing that I deal with in my day-to-day. So
And Morgan,
definitely make sure you're. Yeah,
I was just going to jump in on the HST that I think at certain points, if you get to a certain level, the CRA will ask you to pay quarterly, right?
Yes, definitely. And you can choose, like, for example, if you are a annual filer, like if you got your registration letter and they chose annually because they're unaware of how much you're going to make that year, you feel like you're making too much or you're withholding too much HST in your account and it kind of makes you nervous or something like that, you can file it whenever you want. So like I have some clients that are quarterly that file actual monthly, because as soon as the money's in their account, they want to get rid of it so they don't feel like it's theirs.
True.
And I mean, it's better to pay it early. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So you're either going to pay it at the end of the year, every quarter, or whatever. So. Okay, any questions about CRA deadlines, anything like that? No? No one wants to talk about it.
I just, I'm chairperson of a not-for-profit, and we just discovered that we were incorporated earlier than we were told by the lawyer we were incorporated. So we owe like we have to actually file taxes on that partial year that we didn't really kind of know. So I just did, so we're a year late on the first year of taxes, but I just filed our next taxes on the T2 short form and mailed it in. But yeah, it's overwhelming as you're starting up of when those deadlines are. So just, I'm with you on that one. Just be aware of them.
Yes, absolutely. I have a client that I'm currently working with. I've been working with her for a year and a half now, and I had to do a whole new tax lesson again last night when I met with her. She was so funny. She was like, so I have to pay 3 types of taxes? I'm like, yes, we've been over this. She's like, I don't listen. Yeah, so we went through the whole tax spiel again. That's why I figured it was great to start with that one.
Yeah, it's always good to know.
Exactly. Okay, so the next one that I have on my list is bookkeeping processes. So a lot of people like to avoid until it's too late, which creates some problems in itself because, as we all like to think, our memories are not as sharp as we want them to be. And I do find something as simple as a $200 payment you made to, I don't know, a supplier at the beginning of the year, and you misplaced that receipt, and now you've got to categorize it for the accountant. That can be a struggle in itself. So like the longer you put it off, these little tidbits of things that are left in your brain are no longer there, and it's harder to account for them. So that's definitely one thing. Don't avoid. I know no one's going to listen, but definitely something to consider. And I also find that a lot of people are trying to track their accounting in spreadsheets in the beginning to save money, which is totally fine, as long as you're giving yourself enough information in your spreadsheets. I would definitely advise accounting software, just because a lot of it is automated and you can create processes that simplify your bookkeeping. Like I have one client that I did training with, and she was doing everything in a spreadsheet for like the first 3 years of her business. And then when we put her into QuickBooks Online, she used to spend, I think she said like probably 8 to 12 hours a month at her bookkeeping. And now she only spends like 30 minutes a month because we set up the processes. So everything she was doing in her spreadsheet is still done, but she doesn't have to manually calculate her HST. And QuickBooks Online has a rule setting. So if there's something that's reoccurring or similar transactions, you can set up rules which kind of implement an automation process. Now that's something that you want to proceed with caution, because if you don't do training, I guess, to learn how these things work, it can create its own problems, is another side of the coin. Any questions on that?
I know you mentioned QuickBooks. Do you recommend QuickBooks over Sage over anything else? Is there pros and cons to different things?
Yeah, I don't like to say don't use one or anything like that, because it really depends on the type of person you are. But from my experience and like the clients that I've had, I've done a lot of transitions from Sage to QuickBooks Online. Okay. Now, depending on the person you speak to, they're going to say, I hate QuickBooks Online, or I hate Sage, or, those types of things. But if you're planning on doing any type of training, I definitely think that QuickBooks Online is the best way to go. Okay. It's a live program, so you can access it from anywhere. You don't need I have one client that still uses Sage, and she brings her Sage computer everywhere she goes, which is completely dated, but that's where her software is downloaded, and that's just how it works. So she travels with 2 computers everywhere. She's like, we got to get this gone. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. I have Sage, but it's online. Like I could do it on my phone. I could do it wherever I am. So it's the online version. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I haven't really had much experience with that one. Do you like it?
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
But
so
it's
once
funny.
You understand.
Yeah, but it's funny that you say about the spreadsheet. So my mother has a strong accounting background. So when I started my business, she gave me a template in Excel, which was the income statement, and all the formulas are there. If I put it into the expenses on, with the third tab, it goes to my income statement summary, and she's an Excel whiz. I still manually enter into my Excel, but I also pop it into the Sage, and for me, that's my virtual receipt box, because I'm more likely to remember to put it into my spreadsheet when it happens. And then I go into Sage and go, oh, okay, I don't have those ones in there. And then I pop them in. So it has saved me time, because I'm really quick at it now, and it's all set up, but it's almost like my spreadsheet is my backup, but the Sage is where I work from. It's where the biggest advantage for me on the Sage piece, or having the software, is issuing invoices. I can put quotes into the system, they're professional looking, that my clients receive, all that kind of stuff. So that's probably the bigger thing that I prefer about the software. But the cloud option is great for me. I just get paid monthly for it. And it's always the latest version. That's what I like about it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I haven't done much research on the new one, because I haven't had a client, I guess, ask me about it. But it sounds very similar to QuickBooks Online, which is awesome.
Yeah. Sharon, you have a question?
Oh, yeah.
That question, Carol. Thank you. Morgan, I just want to make a comment about QuickBooks. I did training, and I'm illiterate when it comes to that stuff. And I resisted. I resisted most of the business stuff with my business, but I did do the training. Pauline Pennell did the training with me, so she took me through QuickBooks, and it's easy, and it's I consider it like QuickBooks for dummies. So I just punch in stuff, and it does its magic. So it's easy. It's easy to learn. If I can learn it, anybody can.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I definitely agree. Like training is so important because like you can buy software and pay for it for months and months and think you're doing everything correctly. And then you hand it into your accountant and they're just like, what is this? Because there's so many little processes that would probably only take a few hours to learn. If you take good notes and those types of things, of course. But if you are trying to figure it out yourself and you're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. But then at the end of the year, it doesn't make sense to your accountant. Then all that time and money paying for the software that you put into it could essentially be worth nothing. So I'm not trying to upsell my services or anything, but I have seen like the benefits, I guess, from my clients that have done training and the ones that I've had to work with cleanups. So like I actually start with a new client in October. An accountant called me and asked me if I would take on one of his clients because he's like, I don't have time to do the training, but she needs it. So he called me first and then she called me after. She's like, I feel like a dog with my tail between my legs. Yeah, it was quite funny. So anyway, I start with her in October and she was using QuickBooks Online for 2 whole years. And then when she brought it to him to file 2 years of taxes, he said there was no sense to be made of what she had done. So for her, it was like, she's like, I know I did wrong and she's accepted it. She's ready to move on. But that's 2 years that she could have had everything done and up to date. So having those processes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you got two things, right? Technology and money, like stuff that people are just apprehensive about, and now they're coming together. And so I think it probably makes it harder for some people to, admire that woman for being able to admit, hey, I messed up and she's coming to you for help. But
yep, it was definitely a unique case in my scenario because most of them don't admit it right up front. They eventually do, but she was like, here it is. I did an awful thing. Yeah. It was quite the conversation that we had. But that's the type of stuff that I love because like I know that like to her it seems like the end of the world, but to me it's like, oh my gosh, that'll only take us a few months and we'll have you back on top, understanding what you have to do, and for the rest of your business now you won't have a problem, or like I guess you won't have like uncertainties with your books. I think I've slightly touched on the automation in these softwares is why I choose, I think, because I still use spreadsheets for some people, but very rare. It's mainly if they can't afford like the monthly fees for the software. But like I said, the automation tools in the software is what saves a lot of money. So like even if you're paying $50 to $100 a month for a software, the automation tools that are in it will save you order time that you're paying a bookkeeper, or it's going to save you time as you can get back to actually running your business rather than inputting the same receipt every single month type thing. Yeah. I think that's all I have on my bookkeeping processes tips. Is there any other questions in that regard?
So what I'm hearing is do things timely, do it, track it, keep a hold of it, do it quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, it depends really on your transaction count, actually. So if you're a business that has only like 50 transactions in your bank account a month, you can definitely do your bookkeeping monthly. I wouldn't go any further than that, again, because the memory piece. Like even with me, like I got to ask clients stuff now from like cleanups that I'm doing back in 2022, and they're like, Morgan, I have no idea. Like, how am I supposed to know what I bought back in 2022? And I was like, well, it's on your bank statement, and unfortunately, CRA is going to question it if you get audited. So we got to figure it out. So then I go through the memory game with them. I say, like, did you buy any, like based on the cost and like the memo that comes up in the feed? I'll start going through the processes. Like, do you have an email conversation about why you bought this, or like all these types of things? And we usually track down about 90% of them. But unfortunately, there are some that we don't, and we aren't able to track down. They aren't able to remember. So we'll have to essentially make up something. So to the, like, I guess our best between the two of us, like our educated guess on what it could be. And then they just have to hope that they don't get audited and have to explain that transaction to CRA.
There you go.
So the next one that I wanted to chat about was like efficient documentation. So there's so there's a new way, I guess, that you can, like, before everything was paper filed. So if you do like a complete training course with me, we'll do a digital or physical system. So it's essentially a way just to track your receipts, to hold them, to have them ready in case of an audit, because that's end all be all, the reason that we keep our receipts. So QuickBooks Online, I'm not sure if your Sage, your cloud-based one has this or not, but they have a snap feature. So if you go to the store and purchase something, you can take a picture on your app and it uploads directly to your software, which eliminates the process of you having to keep your physical receipts. Now, I have some people that stress over that, so they'll have copies of both. But it's really nice that, like, for example, if you get audited for 2021 and you knew that you snapped all your receipts, you just open up your QuickBooks, search the amount, and then the receipt is actually attached. So then you can send that off to CRA. It's pretty cool. I have a lot of people that are switching over to it, but I do have, I'd say about 50% do the digital and 50% do the physical. Yeah, the physical filing system is more of like your categories in QuickBooks. Oh, Brendan's gone.
Yep.
Yeah, so the physical filing system is more based on your categories. So whatever category you put the receipt into in your accounting is what CRA is going to audit. So you'll just search through that category in your software to easily pull up that one.
Okay. Sharon, jump in.
Me again. I'm a real QuickBook fan. QuickBook nerd here. But you know, it also makes it better for the person who's doing your taxes, because she can go in and access that and everything's there for her. Before, I was bringing in little slips of paper, little this and little that, and it's all unorganized in folders and all that, and it was really frustrating for her. I didn't care because I just used to dump it off to her. But
Yes.
now it's easier for her. So QuickBooks is working for your person who's doing your taxes too. Thanks.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and essentially on the same note, it's saving you money that you're paying that person to decipher through these. Yeah.
Now that's
all
a good
around,
point.
great idea.
That's a good point.
I'm all about saving money. I think that's all I got on the documentation. Yeah, that's it. My next tip, which is something you probably already heard, but it's get a separate business bank account, because keeping everything separated is going to save you, again, time and money, which essentially is why we're doing what we do. So, for example, I had a client that come to me a couple months back. She wanted to become a client. I always use real life examples because I know that someone else can almost relate to those, but she come to me and she really wanted me to do her books and get her caught up from a couple years. And she didn't have a separate business bank account. So we would have had to go through 3 of her personal things, so 2 credit cards and a bank account. And I would have had to sit down with her and she would have had to highlight everything that was business, because she said Sheila had lost a lot of her receipts in a flood that was in her house. So again, these things happen. You can't anticipate them. But we would have had to sit down with 2.5 years worth of bank statements, her personal ones. So her mortgage was coming out and her personal purchases, like all these things, and highlight them, which that's probably going to take about 6 to 10 hours in itself to go through those. And then for her to try to remember what they were and all those types of things. So unfortunately, she didn't want to work with me after because she didn't like the reality of it. And I think this is the first person that was like, no, we're not doing this, which I understand. But it would have costed her too much money and it wasn't, I don't think it was worth it for her. So I'm not sure what she did. I hope she figured it out. But yeah, it's definitely something that I struggle with because people don't like to hear like the hard truths when it comes down to. Yeah. But yeah, so if she had a separate business bank account or a separate card for her business transactions, even like a personal credit card that you just only use for business, like that's enough too. Like I'm not saying people have to go and purchase or set up a new account and pay monthly fees on it if it's not feasible for them, but just somewhere where you can keep 90% of those transactions away from your personal ones.
I 1000% agree with that. We see it quite often here at the credit union, especially when it comes to lending and stuff too, is if you're going to get lending products, make sure that they're being separate, especially when it comes to where the payment's coming from. Because quite often when we receive requests from accountants and stuff, it's like, what is this? And then having to go backtrack with all the statements and stuff is definitely beneficial to keep that separate. And like you can get service account packages with very minimal fees. So like in the end, it saves you in the long run when your accountant's not having to flip back through 12 months of statements trying to figure out line by line, is this personal, is this business, right? It definitely works out better in the long run.
100%. I definitely think that there's so many things that people can do from the start that will avoid 90% of these issues that we're chatting about today. And that's, like you said, one of them for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just since we're having a little chat here, I didn't hear you in the beginning because my camera went funny, but I didn't realize you're from credit union. And QuickBooks Online doesn't connect with credit union.
Yes. So that is a QuickBook and credit union issue. We as Atlantic Edge Credit Union have looked into it. The problem lies with they're not necessarily inclined with credit unions joining, and the cost associated from QuickBooks is astronomical. So we do have a lot of people, because if I'm not mistaken, QuickBooks, you can upload your statement same. So we have a lot of members that end up going that way. It would be a dream if when we get to that point, and I think it'll happen eventually, but it's not, the cost associated with it is blew my mind when I found out.
Yeah, I believe it. I was just curious because like every other bank that I've ever ran into has it. And I started with a credit union client and she was like, I can't get this to connect. So anyway, I did a bit of research and realized that it doesn't. But then we went with the upload feature. And
the thing with credit unions, each credit union is its own entity. So I'm with Atlantic Edge Credit Union. We're our own entity. And then there's Newfoundland Labrador Credit Union, for instance. They're their own entity. We follow the same like guiding principles because we're all co-op and we all, want to give back to the community and follow those same things. But each credit union would have to buy into that program, into QuickBooks. So it's a lot. And as, a small credit union with only 16 branches, and we're the second largest in the province, it was just not feasible. Yeah. So it's unfortunate that it's that way, but luckily there's a workaround.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, I was just curious because I had no idea why or what the situation was. And I was like, well, this is my opportunity to find out.
Absolutely. It's interesting to say the least.
Yeah, it is definitely because I have one client now with credit union. So it's, again, I haven't ran into it very much, but it was definitely good that they had a workaround because if not, it would have she would have had to spend a lot more time with me than we anticipated.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Oh, this is kind of a good one. So regularly reconcile accounts. So a lot of people aren't familiar with what reconciliation even is or how it works and why it's important. So I'm just going to use an example from like QuickBooks directly, like as if I was to work in a client's file. So reconciliation is essentially taking your bank statement each month and your accounting software, and it's matching it. So you want to look at your date range that you recorded in, say, your checking account with your checking statement that you printed out from the bank. So you want to make sure that QuickBooks and that statement match. So that's essentially what it is. And if there's anything left in your software or your spreadsheet that didn't get ticked off that match the bank statement, then your taxes are calculated incorrectly because there's an extra entry put in there, or there's a transfer, so your balances are off. Like there's a lot of different factors that this reconciliation process can eliminate. So like I had a client that had this only happened last week. So they had 2 invoices put in for a house that they were building. So the invoices were like 160,000. So they were duplicated, but the HST was calculated on these invoices for 160,000. So that person had already paid their taxes for that previous quarter. So they paid 15% of 160,000 twice, and they didn't need to. So after we did the reconciliation and had them caught up to date, it actually reduced the taxes that they owed in the next quarter by a significant amount because they had way overpaid. So like those are the types of things that you can, I guess, avoid by keeping up with your reconciliations every single month.
And if I could actually add to that, just from a fraud perspective, you're required to review your statements within 30 days of them being issued, because if there's some fraudulent transaction on there, you actually have some recourse with your bank. But if you're not, if you're waiting till the end of the year to do those reconciliations, you have no recourse when you realize that that was actually a fraudulent transaction. So that's another really crucial part about it.
Yeah, there's
That's
so
a good
many
point,
things that I've
Samantha.
come across. Yeah, I actually dealt with a fraudulent transaction from a reconciliation last month. It was like $800 and something, and to this specific client, $800 was nothing really, because they had like such a large volume of in and out transactions, probably like I'd say 200 within a 2-week period. So that $800 just looked like another expense to them. And then the next day there was another one for like $200. So at the end of the day, they had like 3,000 that they took from this business, and they had no idea until we reconciled their accounts. She's like, I don't remember buying those things. And anyway, called the bank, and she did get her money back.
Yeah, and that's because it was within that threshold. Because if she waited till like December to do it, she wouldn't have qualified.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a scary thing too.
It is. And it's more and more now, we're seeing it quite often, with whether it be like checks being maliciously changed or just random purchases and stuff. So it's definitely top of mind now, and it should be top of mind.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I think I'm fortunate because I was raised by a banker. So I'm going to age myself now, because I actually had, those checkbook registers, and you wrote every single thing in, pre-debit cards and all that kind of stuff. And if I was out a penny, I could spend an hour to find that penny. Where did I transpose a figure or something? Because she drilled it in me. You have to balance to the penny. And, some people would be like, oh, 5 cents, or if it's under 25 cents, I don't care. No, I had to find that penny. So, she brought me up under that. And so, now, of course, with apps, like I don't wait for statements. I mean, I'm on my banking app every single day, probably multiple times a day, just because it's one of those checklist things. You go on the phone and do this, 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 and this, and the bank is one of them. And if not, hubby's in there, and like, what's this transaction, and where'd this come from? And so, you actually don't need to kind of wait for those statements, but I see what you're saying, Samantha, about the timing of making sure you are. But it is something, it sounds so simple of how that could have happened, Morgan. If that person has that volume of transactions, what's another transaction, right? It's pretty easy to have something slide through if you're not actually on top of it. I'm going to go to Allison, who's got her hand up, and then Hillary's just joined, so I'll do a quick hello to Hillary. So Allison?
I was just going to say, like with my bank and my phone app, I just have it set up that I get notifications every time there's a transaction in my account. So it's just automatic. I'm automatically verifying as I go. It takes
my credit card does that.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's helpful to anyone to set something like that up, and takes, get some of the work done for you. But I mean, you'd still have to
I
go
definitely
and
think
compare
it could help. Yeah.
Excellent. Hillary, going to say a quick hello to you.
Hello, sorry for being late. I had a time-sensitive funding meeting this morning, but I'm joining from the car.
There you go. Well, that's what we're talking about, is money. So Morgan is our guest. She's just running us through a casual conversation. Morgan, for you to know, Hillary is in St. John's. She works with Atlantic or Study and Stay Newfoundland Labrador, working with international students. And she's also heavily involved in community projects and not-for-profits. So she's quite connected out in St. John's.
Nice to meet you, Hillary.
You as well. And I think money management for our program is something I'm interested in getting a little bit more deeply involved in. So many of our students start their own businesses up, and actually giving them like real life skills of here's how to not have CRA yelling at you at the end of the year. It's an area I'm more interested in providing some more like practical skills. So I'm excited to catch up on the recording for anything I missed today.
Yes, that would be awesome. We do small courses like customized to specific businesses. So if you have anyone in startup, we could definitely do small courses with them, even in a group setting, to kind of get them pointed in the right direction, if nothing else.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I will definitely be reaching out.
Sounds good. All right. Is there anything else we want to chat about before I move on to the next one? We have 2 left.
No, this is great. It's nice and relaxed and chatting. Like I say, talking money is not always comfortable for everyone. So appreciate you making it nice and relaxed.
Yes, no, I find that it's it's definitely something that people avoid, and I'm usually caught in the middle of hard conversations, I think. So I've learned that smiling helps. Yeah, smiling helps. And it's like, well, at the end of the day, these are your 2 options. So you can avoid, and then eventually it all catch up to you, or you can just deal with it now and the cost not be as heavy. So when you put it into terms where it's really black and white, like I know money is not black and white at all, but the end result is always black and white, I find. So when you're, I guess, making them aware of their current situation and the things that we have to do, everything up front before you actually start, I find people are a lot more relaxed, and they're more like, okay, let's just get this done, because if not, I know now I'm going to have to pay arrears on my arrears every single day that passes.
Yeah. I think one of the best things banks started doing years ago, or at least our bank did, was actually putting how long it would take you to pay off your credit card if you paid the minimum only. Right? Because people would be not realizing that, if you bought something today, September 10th, you weren't billed till, October 8th, which means it wasn't due till November 8th. But if you didn't pay that in full, you're actually interested back to September 10th. And how that all worked. And so all of a sudden you're getting this bill saying it would take me 43 years if I paid the minimum balance to pay off this bill. I think it started to help people realize like this whole arrears thing, and interest on interest can add up very, very quickly.
Absolutely. My sister actually just started a small business. She's only 21, out in St. John's. So she's learning all these things from me now, and I'm trying not to do them all for her. So, and she also asked me, she's like, I don't want to like get a loan from mom and dad, or I don't want mom and dad to pay for my equipment that she needed to start her business. She wouldn't mind me talking about this either, by the way. So, anyway, I think she had about $5,000 worth of equipment that she had to buy to get started before she can even take her first client. So anyway, she went out and she got a credit card, a business bank account, and a credit card along with that. And she texted me, I think about a week before her credit card needed to be paid off. She's like, Morgan, I can't afford to pay my credit card yet. I didn't make enough money. So I advised her, again, it's not something that you want to do because it's still interest, but in a situation like that, her credit card was a 22% interest rate. And she was offered a line of credit at I think 7% interest rate. So I told her to accept like the pre-approval of the line of credit and transfer the balance over. And I advised her of all the things that is going to happen. Like she is still going to get charged interest on that. It's just going to be at a lesser amount and how it works. But she was like, okay, that's enough today, Morgan, but we're going to talk about this again in a week.
She knows the limitations. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, it was hilarious. I was like, I didn't want to push her, but she's an adult now, and we can't do everything for her. So I'm glad that she's realizing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a little giggle that me and my mom had.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So the next one that I wanted to chat about is actually kind of what we're doing today, like participate in networking events and gatherings, because I find that again, the easy conversations that you can have with others' experiences and I guess lessons that people have learned that they're comfortable with openly talking about. Um, you're going to find that in like-minded people. So if you're doing events like this here, someone might have worked with me in the past and realized how much money they actually saved and how much time and the stress and everything. And just by having a 5-minute conversation about your experience of the mess that you were in and now the mess that you no longer have and how you're confident in your books could help someone else in the long run. So these types of events are definitely super important for a community like ours, like entrepreneurs, business owners, just people involved in, I guess, cash flow in general.
Well, that's
really
how
nice that
when I
you-
started my business, I kept hearing this word ecosystem. And it was like, what do you mean there's an ecosystem? And I'd go to, I'd go for coffee and I'd meet somebody and I'm chatting and it would be like, oh my God, does that apply to me? Am I supposed to be worried about that? And I remember going to something and somebody was talking about occupational health and safety. And I'm like, oh my God, occupational health and safety never came to my head. So I rushed home and I called the number and then I got transferred on the phone to St. John's and all this kind of stuff. And they said, ran me through, 5 questions. Nope, doesn't apply to you. You work from home. You don't have any employees. And, basically if you fall down, it's your own insurance. Okay. But I was like panicked for, an hour about what have I done that I've violated? And it was just simply a coffee, it was, I think we were at Brood Awakening and somebody was talking all about it. I'm like, oh my God, what does this mean? So yeah, it's the, those early days of not knowing what you don't know and when
Yeah,
it can come back on you, right?
I feel like that needs to be a workshop I offer. What you don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have one of the extra things that I chatted about in the beginning was actually workplace NL. So as soon as someone gets a payroll number, I ask them, have you spoke to workplace NL yet? And they're like, what? What is that? Anyway, so then we go through the whole process and workplace NL actually makes you prepay, which is a big thing too. So you'll get charged interest if you don't prepay your expenses and to them. So I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with that, but they actually, based on your previous year, they ask you to do an estimate for the current year. So at the end of 2023, they'll be like, how much, like you spent 80,000 in payroll this year, how much do you anticipate? Do you expect it to be the same, more or less? And then they will calculate a payment that they want you to make monthly, bi-weekly, however schedule works for you. And then you make an adjustment price at the end of the year of whatever the difference was, or a credit if you overpaid. I really like how they have that system set up. It's just a lot of people aren't aware of it.
Yeah, to me, that's like prepaying my income taxes. It's easier to do it quarterly rather than fall off my chair in February and go, how much do I have to pay?
Yeah, exactly. I find that income tax too, you mean from a corporation perspective?
Well, I'm sole proprietor, so it's my own
Oh,
personal income tax in essence. But the first year that I didn't do any quarterly payments, and I'm doing my taxes, and of course, you work payroll when you pay income tax every week on a payroll when you're in a salaried. Of course, I haven't paid income tax all year, and I just
yep.
like literally fell off the chair when it came back. You owe this much. I mean, it's what I paid for years, but I paid it every 2 weeks on a paycheck. I didn't have to do a lump sum. So now I do quarterly income tax remittances. One's scheduled for next week, actually, middle of the month. And just so that I don't have that huge long, plus the federal government now doesn't want to wait for my taxes at the end of the year. They want it quarterly.
Right, exactly. You taking off, Terry?
I have to run. I'm really sorry, guys. This was a fabulous session. I always say if you learn at least one thing new every day, then you've got a good chance in being successful in life. So thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
All the best on
You
Open
too.
Farm Day, Terry Lynn.
Thank you.
Yeah, so on that income tax note, same thing with corporations, I guess. So I just dealt with a client that again was 2 years behind in taxes. So they so as soon as they filed, they got a late filing penalty charge. And then after they paid it, we had to wait about a week for CRA to calculate the arrears payment. So she was like, I got to go back in a week and see how much I owe and then pay it again. So yes. So it helps to make payments throughout the year. It doesn't matter if it's monthly, quarterly, even weekly, depending on how much you owe. But a little trick that I've learned, I guess, to help my clients stay on top of that number is pulling a profit and loss statement. So assuming that your books are up to date completely, you can do what's called a year-to-date profit and loss. So if all your books are up to date, your accounts are reconciled as of, say, July 1st, even if you don't have the last 2 months done. Let's do a statement from January 1st to July 1st. You scroll to the bottom of your statement and it gives you a profit. Let's just say it's 30,000 and you fall in that small business category of 12% for our tax rate. So you just multiply your profit by 12%, and that's estimated how much you owe from right now. So it's kind of a good way to just be aware throughout the year rather than being at the end of the year and it's a total surprise, like you said, 15,000 or whatever it is at like your end.
A couple hundred you can handle, but when you get into the thousands, you're like, what?
I didn't prepare for this.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Totally.
Well, it's funny because my mom has a brother who's an accountant. She has nieces and nephews who are accountants and so on. But when I asked my uncle when I was starting, he said, keep 25%. And I'm like, what? He said, 25%, just stock it away. And I'm like, okay. Yep. So, it was a good rule of thumb. And he had no clue whether I was going to make $1,000 or $100,000, but he just said 25%. Yeah. Just, and then the other side, as you talked about the HST, I mean, that's flow through money. So, if you're not, like in my business, I have very few input tax credits because I don't build anything. So essentially what I bill out in HST is what goes to the government. I think I pay $1.15 on my Microsoft account each month, and I pay, $4 on my Sage accounting each month or something. So I mean, I may as well say if I bill $100, I need to pay the government the $100. So, I've had friends say that they're not disciplined enough, so they actually have a third account. They got the personal account, their business account, but they have a third account where they just take that HST when it comes in and put it aside because they know it's really not theirs. It's just got to flow through. Well, you can kind of do the same with taxes too. If you think there's an issue that you're not going to have, those payments, then you could take that 25% and shove that into something else that you're not touching, so that you have it ready to pay, right? But again, the banker instilled in me certain practices, so I'm on top of that. But it is scary at the time. You get a check from your clients, you go, okay, that's my money, but it's really not. There's so much that has to come out of that.
Yeah, exactly. I actually had a friend a couple years ago. She started a new job, and her boss got mad at her because he asked her to do a cash flow statement, and she didn't take account into HST for the cash flow statement because that's not what we were taught in university. So the HST doesn't come out of your day-to-day spending, I guess, from his perspective, it did. So anyway, two of them had a huge falling out because he was mad that she didn't put that in there. And then she was like, I don't want to tell him like he's wrong. I just started this job and I was really proud of my cash flow statement. Anyway, she had to have a hard conversation with him, she brought me into it because I just started this training company when she got this job. So anyway, I had to sit down with this grown man and tell him about his HST, and he didn't really like it, but after like about an hour of us chatting, he's like, I really appreciate you coming in, and like I'm glad you sat down and kind of were able to have this conversation with me.
Yeah. Awesome, Allison. Thanks so much for being able to join.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, like I say, they're hard conversations to have, but we would have hard conversations with our doctor about our physical health. So having those hard conversations about our financial health too, for our business is important.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I guess we'll move on to my last tip. So my last tip is what your accountant needs from you. So this one can be held, I guess, for lack of a better word, loosely, because it depends on your business specifically, what your accountant is going to need. So like if you are a sole proprietor versus a corporation, there's going to be different things. So I'll just do a brief overview, and if anyone got any questions, we can chat them out specifically. So essentially what your accountant does at the end of the year, if you're a corporation, is they prepare financial statements. So if we work backwards, that financial statement comes from your bookkeeping processes, ensuring all your accounts are reconciled, those types of things. So he can't do his job or her job without having your processes in place. So whether he's doing those things for you or you're doing them for him type thing. So another thing is having like the records, for example, like as long as the numbers are all in the system, the accountant doesn't care essentially if you have documentation, but he wants you to be aware that you need this specific documentation because what he's filing is going directly to CRA and you have to be able to prove what he filed. I'm using he just because I use Brian Barker. He's my partner's stepfather. So we do a lot of work back and forth. But yeah, so I like to work financial statements backwards when I explain it to like brand new business owners, because then they get to see and understand the full picture. Oh, we're losing someone else. Yeah, it was nice to meet you, Samantha.
Thanks. This was a great session.
Yes, I'm glad I got to
joining.
meet you.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah, so another thing again was documentation. So from your revenue side and your expense side, I find that a lot of people don't keep anything from their revenue if they're like not so much service based, more like a product based, or like I had this one client that does transportation. So like he picks up things on his trailer, drops it off somewhere else for someone, and he doesn't keep their names or anything. And most of the time it's fine. But if we want to kind of dive in a bit deeper, like CRA might think that there's money laundering happening in that case. So for example, if I picked up a side-by-side and dropped it off to someone at Bay Roberts, you need the person's name that paid you to pick that up. So if you're creating a receipt for them, even if it's just on a little receipt book that you picked up at the dollar store, you want to make sure that their name is on there, because that's definitely important. Sharon laughing. But yeah, I haven't ran into anyone that's been, actually that's a lie. I did last December, one of my clients got flagged for laundering and it was completely incorrect, but the bank had called her and she was in the car with her daughter. And this is a really funny story. So she was in the car with her daughter and the bank was basically like, are you sure you want to have this conversation right now? Like I can call you back at a time where you're in a more private area. And she was like, what? Like, no, it's just me and my daughter. Like, it's fine. Because her daughter also worked in her business with her. And they were in a point where their so they only had 2 customers at this time, but they were very large customers. So there was a huge, try not to give too many details, but there was a huge crisis, I guess, in the town where this business operated. So they were not paying their bills. So they were owed like $200,000. Okay. So they couldn't make their payment. So they had gotten some loans from family members to cover off their payroll taxes and a couple other things. So the bank had assumed that they were laundering money because of the activity that was happening in her bank account. And as soon as she explained the situation to the girl on the phone, she's like, I am so sorry. She said, I have seen this before, but we just have certain criteria that flags your system. And unfortunately, yours ticked every single box. But it was all loan based, not income based. So as soon as she explained that, the bank was like, okay, we're fine. Yeah, it was quite funny. She called me right after. She's like, we're going to have to tell you something.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely something I never ran into only with her, but it was definitely an experience that I feel like I should share. And she was like, you can use me as an example because this is like bizarre.
Well, in
Uh,
some ways, it's good that the systems are there to check certain things, right? Like if had it
mhm,
been not legitimate, then at least something is getting stopped somewhere. But
exactly.
yeah, interesting.
Right? Yeah, I'm so glad I haven't ran into it in real life. Oh my. Okay, so moving on through this list, payroll information. I find a lot of nonprofits that I work with struggle with payroll. You mentioned one that you're with, Carol.
Mhm.
So this may or may not be an issue with you guys, but if you don't have somebody working within there or on the board of a nonprofit, payroll's really hard to track. And I find that when you're dealing with like board members, a lot of balls kind of get dropped because people don't know the deadlines and they think that another person on the board is responsible for this deadline when they thought it was you and those types of things. So I had to go through, I think it was last year, I had to go through the whole year of 2023 to fix up the payroll. So she was just paying X amount of dollars a month, which she thought she was collecting in payroll, but she was actually paying more. So it looked like she was filing like, I think it was $800 a month or something, but she was only supposed to be filing like 600. So at the end of the year, she uploaded her T4 and then she had this huge credit in her payroll account because she was overpaying them. So it was fine because then they just transferred it to the following year, but she didn't know that it had to get transferred to the following year. So what happened was she knew that there was going to be a credit because after she did it, she seen the credit there in her account, but she didn't call CRA directly and ask them to move that bit of money to 2024. So that's something that you have to actually call and request, and it can take up to 180 days.
Wow.
Yeah. So like I also have people that overpay or underpay their HST, but overpaid on a different account. So like you can get your payroll taxes transferred. Like if you have a credit in your payroll taxes, it can get transferred over to your HST. So that's something that a lot of people don't know either, but you do have to call and make a formal request, and it takes 180 days sometimes to reflect on that account.
Yeah, we just found out we hired a summer student, like we're newly incorporated, as I mentioned. And when we did our final report for Canada's summer jobs, she said, "What'd you pay in workers?" We don't have a workers number. So now we found out exactly what you were talking about. Now we apparently have to pay workers retro because we didn't know about it. Doesn't excuse us the fact that fortunately our summer student didn't get hurt, but we still have to go through that. So our treasurer is just setting up in the system yesterday, and she said, honestly, I think we need to give our firstborn and our grandchildren to them. Like, I don't know what more they need from us. We're a not-profit, a volunteer board. What is like, you need this and this and this and this. You're just like, oh my God, this is insane. But so we're going to get that interim bill, but she's going to put it on the actual payroll because we know what the actual payroll is. So we shouldn't have to pay any adjustment in January. But it was a nightmare going through it because we don't have staff. This is the first time we've done it. We actually discussed at our board meeting, is the output of having a student worth the hours that we as a board are putting in to manage and do this tracking and do the reporting and and then she still has to do the ROE, but that's Service Canada, that's not CRA,
And
but
it's
then she
all
has
a
to do
different platform. Yep.
all different stuff, and then she has to do the T4. We have to remember to do the T4, and now that we have a payroll account, apparently she's going to have to quarterly remit, even though it's a nil report. So having to remember that she's going to have to go in and file every month, or every quarter, nothing. So like, it's overwhelming when it's volunteer. Like for my business, I can get my head into it because it's my business and I'm in the business, but
Yes.
when you're working with not-for-profits, I'm sure Hillary runs into this because she's heavily involved in not-for-profits as well. But this is your side thing. This is your passion project. This isn't your job. And then all of a sudden you're into I can spend as many hours doing a business work on this that I do on my business, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's really hard. And I find that, again, still on the same topic of workplace and like the CRA nil remittances, I have a bunch of seasonal businesses that are bookkeeping clients of mine. So what I'll do, this is something that you can do as well. If you know that you're not going to have a payroll from January to, let's just say, April, because you don't operate within those months, you can file a report from that date range. You don't need to go in and do it every quarter.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. I'll let her know.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's also something like, for example, if you thought you were not going to have anybody till the end of April, but you actually did pay someone in the month of April, you can still go back in and just pay your April taxes that you collected, and it will just wipe out that month specifically.
Okay.
Yeah. They don't say that anywhere, but I have been doing it now for 3 or 4 years, and there's never been like an issue with it, and everything's been on par, and it matched like what they were looking for, and CRA didn't call or send out any warning letters. So
Okay. I'll let her know. We'll get through this, you know, the T4 and get all that done, and then we should be able to figure that out going forward.
Yes. Carmelita? Oh, you're muted. There you go.
Yes. No, I did have a question. I didn't know if you were going to have a question period at the end, but I just wonder what would create a reason for you to be audited? Like, what flags would be there that they would say, well, you know, we're going to audit you?
Yeah. So it's there's no black and white answer to this, I guess. But CRA likes consistency and they like gradual growth. So for example, when you're doing your bookkeeping or whatever, you want to make sure that, like, for example, say if you have $5,000 in office supplies last year, but then this year you have like 20,000 in office supplies, but you didn't buy any equipment, like to justify that big jump in expense, it's likely that it's going to trigger an audit for that specific category. So you want to make sure that you're kind of staying around the same ballpark of what is justifiable based on the type of business that you are operating. So like my business, they expect to have like a huge amount of money put into office supplies because I'm an office-based business. Travel is a big one that gets audited for some people. So I find, like, I actually just went through an audit with one client, and nothing ever came out of it. It was really funny because it was the first audit that I went through completely that I did independently with this business. So their travel, they actually started a new bookkeeping software the year that they got audited for. So their previous year was different from the year they got audited for just because of the way that the software tracked it. So that triggered an audit for them just based on like the titles of their categories. So when they switched over to the new software, their bookkeeping was way better because the software was more accurate. So it actually, when we give them all the proof that they asked for that specific travel line, I sent it off to them. It took about 6 months and they sent us back a letter and was basically like, we haven't seen anything. Everything was justified, but just keep these records in case it gets audited again within 7 years. And that was that. Never owed no money, never had to, like, never got any back. Like, it was basically just a wash when I put, I think it was 27 hours into their audit. So she was like, I'm glad you clearly did your job, but it was it was just crazy because they expected to have to owe money or something like that, but it was actually best case scenario. So
right. Yeah, I have someone, a tax preparer, does my taxes every year, but I just did wonder, you know, what would constitute the reason for an audit.
yeah, so if there's like big jumps in your categories that you're remitting, like the receipts that you have, without proper justification of, like I said, a bigger, like a piece of equipment that you bought, or like say a vehicle you bought, and you didn't justify like the kilometers that you have on that vehicle, that could also trigger an audit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For me, Morgan, I was audited in, I think, my first year because, again, I'm sole proprietor, so it's personal. Technically, it's personal income tax. So when I was employed, I had healthcare. And when I became self-employed, I purchased healthcare. And so I actually pay an exorbitant amount that most people don't realize how much healthcare plans can be. And so this lump sum, I went from, the employee portion on a payroll to this lump sum of a massive amount. And so I got audited, and all I did was print the premium statement from my healthcare provider and sent it in. They're like, "Okay, yeah, you're clear." But
Yeah,
it was
it's
the
usually as
fact
simple
that
as
it
that.
jumped, right? It went from hundreds to thousands. How come this person's paying thousands? Well, because I don't have the employer paying part of it anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's really weird how the whole process works, but they just like to see consistency and like gradual growth or loss. So as long as your numbers are comparable to last year, and if they're raised or lessened, at least you have like the proof for that difference. Yeah. I always say with new businesses, it's like if you want to spend X amount of dollars in one category every month, or if it's an important category to you, let's try to get there before your first year end, because that's going to be your staple. That's where you're going to kind of be able to move forward from after that.
Excellent. That was a good question, Carr.
Yeah, that was a good one. I have a couple other small things on the list, but we did cover them over our conversation pieces of the rest of them. So more like your tax documents and the reconciliation and adjustment process, which we did chat about. So I think that might be all that I had.
Excellent. So I'll throw it open if there's any other questions for Morgan.
Probably got everyone put to sleep now, or wondering about their own money.
No, like I say, I mean, these are conversations that are important to have. However, they're challenging. And I think to your point off the top, there's no blanket answer. Kelly's business is different than Sharon's business, different than my business, different than Carm's business, right? We're all sole proprietors. We're all essentially providing services, so we're similar in that aspect. But I think beyond that, there's so many uniqueness things, right?
Absolutely.
Sharon.
And thank you, Morgan. That was very informational. I got a lot into that. And I think the main thing too that I had to recognize when I first went into business, that for myself, that's not my expertise. So I was, trying my best to, juggle all this. But when you pass it over to somebody who that is their expertise, that part of it, everything I can focus on my job, which is enlightenment. That's an expensive job that I do. So the thing is that you do what you do and you offer your services in these webinars and whatnot. That's very important. So for sole proprietors or for people in business, it's important for us to know that it's okay to hand that over and do what you do, like I do what I do to organize it and whatnot, and then hand it over to somebody who's going to keep it organized. Like Carmelita said, she's got somebody doing her taxes, and we're relying on that. Like Pauline, if I bought a new whatever, Pauline say, "Nope, Sharon, can't claim that money." Or you bought a new e-bike, you're not putting that in, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Flags, right? So even though, like, I might try to sneak a little receipt in there, I don't know, unbeknownst, but this is it. You're the expert. So I guess it's a big message to get out there for two business owners that hire the people that are doing this, and you guys know what to watch for. Thank you very much.
Well,
thanks, Carol.
yes, essentially we are actually like, not that we have all the experience in all the departments, but we're able to have the conversation with you, which will raise your justification. So that e-bike that you just mentioned, like, you're asking me if you can put that in on your taxes, and I'm going to ask you why. And if you have good justification that I feel CRA is going to be like, yeah, okay, that makes sense for her, then let's put it in. But that's kind of what it comes down to.
Yeah. Excellent. I think Sharon brings a good point, and thinking of Kelly just starting up. I mean, certainly, $20 a month for this and $15 a month for that and $16 a month for that can add up very quickly. However, at some point it does become, as Sharon alluded to, am I spending more in a way than because I'm putting, this effort into something that I'm not comfortable with or the expertise, is it better to do that? And I think at some point too, I remember somebody saying, well, it's a business expense. You could write that off. I said, yes, but you realize I have to have revenue to write that off. Like,
Yes.
it's okay to say you could claim that. If there's no revenue, what am I claiming it against? So, you get to that in those early days, you get the free Canva account, you don't get the paid account, and you get the free such and such, and until you get a point. But sometimes, and I still have free accounts on a lot of things, but there's certain things that I will pay for because you get to that point where, okay, there's a bit of revenue coming in. And, for me, I don't need a bookkeeper. Like I say, raised by a banker. I've got a whole
Yes.
slew of accountants that are a message away. So I'm fortunate that way. However, if I wasn't, that would probably be an area to me that would be worth spending some money on if that's something you weren't comfortable with. Because it is your bottom line, right?
Absolutely.
Carm,
Oh, you're muted.
you're muted still.
I just wanted to say how much I appreciated this morning because, I don't do a lot with that part of it. I kind of just hand it all over. But yeah, I got a lot of information this morning and it was really informative. Thank you so much, Morgan.
You're welcome.
And
I think
thank
this
you,
was
Carol,
awesome.
by
I
the
really
way.
enjoyed it.
Thank you, Carm, because I know we're hitting you just before you hit your busy season. So I'm glad you're able to join in.
Yes, well, actually, I have a class now early afternoon, my very first one of the fall. So
Exciting.
I know I was happy I made it to your last beach one, but I'm sad that it was the last beach one for the season.
It was good to have you there, Carol.
Thank you. Hillary, do you have any questions or comments? I know you came partway through, but
Not off the top of my head, but definitely related to a lot of the, I guess, instances that were brought up where we made mistakes in the past and just it was so annoying to have to figure out what we were supposed to do right. So I'm glad you're chatting with everyone about that, and I'll definitely be catching the recording so I can see what I missed at the first bit.
excellent.
I'm gonna leave my email in the chat just so if anyone wants it, they got it.
Awesome. Excellent. I know there's something that I give as a tip to people who are especially sole proprietor that are tracking mileage. Get your starting odometer reading on your car for the start of the year and then your end odometer reading at the end of the year. Because when I went to do my taxes to claim that, I did a percentage of my car was used for business purposes, it wanted the starting and the end. And I started my business in February and I'm like, well, I have no idea, what my mileage was then. But 3 days after I started my business, I had put my car in the shop. So I had the odometer from the repair bill. So I was like, yes, cool. But something as simple as that, like until you go through it, sometimes like back to you don't know what you don't know. And so I think of Kelly who's starting in her first year, like things are going to hit at the end of the year, you're going to go, I have no clue, and you got to figure out to the best of your knowledge. But I think these conversations are really helpful because as you get into it, and you said it right off the top, Morgan, like do it right from the beginning versus trying to catch up and figure out what you haven't got or haven't done, right? So
Exactly.
Kelly, for you, any, I know you just popped up your cameras. I don't know if you had to step away, but any questions for you as you're getting going?
I took a lot of notes. Let's just say that. It's funny because this is my second time around as an entrepreneur, and I don't know if a lot of people know that back in 1989, 90, I was an entrepreneur in Nova Scotia. And so things have grown significantly and changed significantly from that time, but things are also the same. So just it brought back a lot of reminders of, oh yeah, I didn't do that. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. So yeah, it was good to know.
Excellent.
That's awesome. I'm glad I could help.
All right. Well, I think
Carol,
on that.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Morgan.
I just tried to put my email in the chat, but it says the chat is only available during the meeting. Did something I don't know what's happening.
All right. Do you want the hello one?
Yes, if you can pop it in there just for everyone. I don't know if they need it or not, but at least it's there.
So hello at mpbl.
ESL.
bsl.com.
Yep, you got her.
There we go.
Yep, that's it.
So I want to thank you, Morgan, for taking the time to join us today. Your first experience with the coffee break. I hope we see you again as a participant in the future. Everyone else has been on this for a while, but just to let you know, we started this as a pilot in a partnership with Navigate in January 2020 to do a virtual for 3 months. And of course, March 2020, we know what happened. And so we continued. So we're actually coming up onto 6 years of doing this, or 5 years doing this virtually and reaching people. So I will continue to offer the service. People seem to enjoy it. For instance, Hillary would not be able to join us for coffee as she's over in St. John's. So it's nice to be able to connect with people in different parts of the province. So I appreciate you taking the time and sharing your story. I really appreciate you keeping it relaxed. I know there's a few guests that have seen Sheldon Payne of Newfound Marketing. He does the same with us. He comes on and he just chats. And it's just, I just find it so much more comfortable, and this topic, as we said, is, it gets people a little twitchy. So be able to keep it nice and relaxed is wonderful. So I'm going to wish everyone fantastic afternoon. All the best in your new seasons as things are ramping up. I know Carm and Sharon are getting right back into their yoga and meditation and mindfulness sessions. Hillary is ramping up. She's looking for mentors. She's always looking for mentors for her international students. So if anyone's interested in being a mentor with their program, I've been it for several years now. It's a really rewarding experience to connect with international students and help them on their journey. They're in their last year of study, so they're kind of making those decisions. Do I start a business? Do I, work for someone here? What they're doing? So that's always exciting. And Kelly's off and running, doing events with Bee's Knees. So, encourage everyone to follow each other on social media if you don't already. And Morgan, we're so glad to welcome you into our little group.
I loved it. This was so fun. I really appreciate you having me.
All right. Enjoy your day, everyone.
Thanks.
And
Have a great day, everyone. You as well.
I saw Sharon and Carm. Namaste. All the best, everyone. Take care.
I know. You too.
Bye.